Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And, I used to go for evening walks every single day. Sometimes I go for long afternoon ones, but for the most part, in the evening, I would always try and get out for a half an hour or so. This winter is a regular winter. Like I'm talking to people and we're just all surprised that we're getting kind of a normal winter and we're not quite used to those normal winters. We've been quite graced with some very nice winters the past, I would say, 3 years now. It's been very, very warm. Like, in the winter time, the past 3 years, when people are just talking about global warming, you know that it is because of the beautiful weather that we've been having here. And this year, it was back to normal. So it's like getting comfy in a way that things were. And then all of a sudden, you're getting thrown backwards into the ice age. And we're all whining and complaining. And I don't know why, because as soon as I walk out that door, I feel so amazing. I don't know why I am so inclined to procrastinate in getting out into the cold. Because if you saw how I dress, like I am bundled, I've got the snow pants on and the big muff around my face and my little Hutterite winter knitted bonnet that I need to get another one done right before this one falls apart. It's my favorite winter hat. And yeah, I look like the Pillsbury Doughboy, and I'm super comfortable. And I could actually go for a walk, and I actually feel like in that moment going for a walk, but then I just find myself going a couple of blocks to the grocery store, to the Shoppers Drug Mart, and then walking home and going, okay, that's good enough. And it's I used to revolve my life a little bit around those walks, and now it seems to be my life is wrapping, or my life is making the walks wrap around it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm prioritizing different. That's what I'm trying to say. And there's a lot of adjustment in that, even in getting used to winter again. I have to get used to the idea that life is going to look a little bit differently for me. That some of those things that I know that benefited me, right? And that I super enjoyed doing. But then I've got to think, it's not like I'm putting on a cape or anything and da 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 da, right? But I really feel sometimes that what I'm doing is important. Well, I don't think for myself. I know, right? But in that knowing, it's a matter of I don't know what it's a matter of. It's just a matter of distinguishing whether or not, if you're going to go further, and if you're going to be branching off or you're going to be pivoting, like what's the grand plan, right? This is what I'm thinking. These are questions that 19 and 20-year-olds think for themselves when they're deciding whether to go off to college or to go to work. And here I am in my own life going, oh my goodness, am I going back to work, or am I retiring, or am I going to hit the road, or if I am I going to go and be deeper in the thought leadership and in some of those understandings that I've stumbled onto and contribute in a way where, hello, Eugene, and then contribute in a way that would benefit people because I was gifted those, you know. And sometimes it's just happy chance that we come across these things. But I believe also they're breadcrumbs and they are planned escapades and adventures, not of my doing. All I have to do is pay attention, right? Where are those crumbs to the gingerbread house, right? And to be able to be a spectator, right? In an adventure that sometimes I don't think I prioritize properly, right? In exploring the inside and the outside, I do want to be outside more, right? But in understanding in the importance of what I'm doing, even if it's just for myself, right? Hello, Kathy. Oh, isn't that nice? Thank you, Kathy, for kind of hanging out. Even if I'm just doing it for myself, it is a good direction for me and it benefits me and it benefits those that I, right, come in and shine, right? People I pick up along the way. Make it so it's not such a crazy journey. Crazy, not like in busy crazy or scary crazy, but kind of a jumble berry pie kind of crazy, if that makes any sense. Just in the variations, just in the appetizers, just in the pursuits of what we're looking for or wanting. And, it serves me really well, but I have to recognize for myself, right? When I'm not spending as much time on the outside as I am in the inside. And I could have just made it nice and short and said that right when I came in. I'm feeling guilty that time that I could be spending outside seriously, I am prioritizing in other things, right? And I would have to, if I was working, right? Work would be priorities. That put the roof over my head. What I'm doing is putting the roof over my head. And so there are times when we have to prioritize in a way that loosens up everything so that, I'm happy to sit here instead of going off for a walk. And it's not the fact that I'm not going off for the walk. It's the fact that I feel bad when I don't go for those walks. So I always have to make sure that, whatever I'm doing, I'm enjoying, right? So walk in the door. I'm grateful for the nice warm apartment. Grateful for that. Grateful for the roof over my head. Grateful for the little walk that I had. Grateful for the lessons that came across my path. Grateful for the conversations. And sometimes, you got to be grateful for the conversations that don't rub you well too. And for myself, it was something to pay attention to. My itchy nose. I don't know that it says don't tell that story. You're just gonna make yourself look bad, Cindy. But I cranked at somebody in the laundry room. I was trying to get my laundry done. And we have a gentleman in the building. I am certain he's doing laundry for the homeless people, and I could not get my clothes in the dryer. Every time I thought that I had a dryer, he was like guarding the washer and switching loads, and it was so frustrating. And he says, "You can't do that." And when I realized he had three machines going at least three machines going on at the same time, which is against building policy. I'm not a policy person, but I had laundry I needed to get done. I had a live show that I had to do. And, I cranked at him. I just says, well, I'm going to talk to management. I'm not happy about this. He didn't say anything to me, but he knew that I was not happy, right? Pretended he didn't speak English, but we have had small conversations before that he just in that moment didn't remember. When I came upstairs, I felt bad, right? And but then I thought, really, are you going to be talking to management about it? And I was like, no, I was just putting the fear of God in him. I says, well, that's where you went wrong, right? That was threatening, right? That was your intent to make him feel bad, right? So I had to look at that because in my mind, I'm teaching him a lesson. But in his mind, I'm just the scary, cranky lady who's just giving him poop for hogging up all the washers and dryers. And there were lessons in that for me, right? Because I don't have those moments very often, right? Oh yeah, I grabbed my laundry and I threw it on top of one of his dryers and tapped on his dryers with my fingers and said, "You taking this out?" I can laugh. I can laugh at it now, but all I can say is, I'm only human, and uh, it wasn't in meanness. It wasn't in meanness, but I was, I guess, a Karen. That's what they call them, Karens. I guess in the moment I was a bit of a Karen, right? I won't apologize to him because I don't believe I was wrong. But the person that I am, I still feel bad. But I tell you, he'll only be using two machines at a time. I'm sure. I noticed three machines he was using, but he probably had them all going. They were all everything was going, so I'm assuming they were all his. Okay. It was interesting, but it's just we're only human, and I'm not one who normally points out people's flaws. I will usually buffer them up. I will probably even make an extra effort into making that person feel good about some other aspect, if instead of making them feel uncomfortable, and I'm not that person, but I do slip up, and we sometimes we just don't even give it any thought at all, right? And maybe I might not have had that little piece of guilt and shame in me, and I just would look for him just so I could just really give him a piece of my mind. Maybe I could have sat here tonight and just been all miserable, right, about it because I felt bad. And that could have been a possibility too, as to why I'm even mentioning it in the minute as it is, right? Is the fact that I'm looking for that justification for doing something that wasn't nice. Two wrongs don't make a right. One of those favorite quotes of my dad's, right? My mom would use it too, right? To get the other kids off the hook when we got into trouble, right? Where one person would get in trouble and the other one would stand there and just learn the lesson. I wasn't the one who was privileged enough to stand there and learn the lesson. I learned the lesson as soon as I knew there was going to be a lesson to be had, but it didn't do me any good in the end anyway. Okay, I have no idea why I'm getting into that conversation. I just felt like having a little laugh at my own missteps, right? Those missteps, and then to look into those missteps, and I feel much better. I feel much better for that. Right? I was doing a little bit. I was washing up the dishes and stuff before I did my live show. Gave it a little bit of a thought, and just like the moment is over. Right? Don't cry over spilt milk. Next time when that happens, and there probably won't be a next time, right? Because I didn't turn the other cheek. That's the idea with lessons, right? Because sometimes it just needs to be brought to somebody's attention when they're not doing right. And I'm not the person that's going to go after the like the drug cartels and all these other big mafia groups and stuff. But that's not me. I'm not going to go to the White House onto the grounds with my stick and protest, right? In my heart, if my friend said, "Would you come with me?" I'm going to go do that. I would have to say no because, right, I don't involve myself in that way because I'm a true believer. Everybody should have the right to have a say. Everybody should have a right to have a voice. And you don't want, in those situations, just because you have the right to do that, right? It doesn't always mean that it's going to work out well for you in having that voice. And you know being somebody sensitive or empathic, right? Or you know even in other personalities, like nobody loves criticism, right? And and uh and and it hurts our feelings that way. And when you don't turn the other cheek in a protest, right, you're criticizing somebody. And so even in supporting one of my friends who was campaigning for something, right, I couldn't do that, not unless I was fiercely, like, how I am about the kids and the mindset in the schools, right? That unless I felt that way, I wouldn't campaign in any way, and I wouldn't be able to support anybody because I don't feel that passion for it, right? But we all have our passions for something, and it's always from our own experiences. You look at the philanthropists and you look at the rich people out there and you look at the organizations that they donate their time and their money to, right? That says something personal about them and the experiences they had in their own life and where they want to contribute and give back, right? I have no idea why I want to be a philanthropist and refurbish old Carnegie libraries. But I do, and that's my thing, right? And it's not like they've gotten any money out of me in the moment, right? But there is that anticipation that somewhere's down the road, if I had an opportunity to pitch in or petition to save one of the, we've got a Carnegie library that needs a roof. It's been abandoned for a very long time now. I think about 10 years. I think it's actually got trees going on, like growing on the roof now in the gutters and stuff. But they said it's going to cost like $200,000 to fix the roof on that library. It's a pretty big building, and it has to be done properly because what they want to do is they want to use the building as an archives, a historical archive, because it is on the historical list. It's a protected building, so it can't be demolished. It would just fall apart, right? So they need benefactors, they need sponsors, they need, what do you call that when you start a page and you try to raise money for something, Kickstarter, something like that, in order to get that roof on that building, right? It would be a shame if I didn't manage to at least get that done in my lifetime. Just another thing to feel bad about. Not really. I do what I do, and I do it right with no expectations, but being optimistic that these things will happen. And they don't just happen to me, they happen for me, and they happen for others because, right, this is what I work towards. I don't know if I could start a Kickstarter page. I could do some research maybe to see if I would be able to be creative enough to do a good job in starting a campaign, a Kickstarter campaign for Heritage Winnipeg. They have the stewardship over that building. It's in the district exchange district, and they have 15 square blocks of old stone skyscrapers and stuff that were built in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So they're protecting them, but that costs a lot of money, right? They a lot of the buildings they turned into like art galleries and offices and apartments and condos and stuff. Um, they're finding uses for these buildings, but they sure would like to have it be the go-to place for tourism and stuff. They make a lot of movies in the district because of all the old buildings. It's an easy setup for movie studios who are looking to make movies in, I guess, any period, from the late 1800s, because those buildings are still standing now, so they can make movies up to the present time. So, but they are beautiful, beautiful buildings. Yeah. Okay, you guys, I am tired. I am all over the place tonight. I didn't do much today. I really didn't. It was a lot of just communicating with a few sales and stuff that I'm making online, just taking in some lessons, sitting in on some conversations, and just piddly stuff, a couple loads of laundry. And it was just kind of one of those blah days. And it's in those blah days sometimes where these lessons that we would prefer not to have in our lives, they happen. And it is to say, oh, you didn't get enough done today. Let's give you one more lesson before you go to bed, before you call it a day. Okay, you guys, let's grab the word here. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes. If you've never popped into one of my lives before, this is 54 powerful words. And they're just powerful words, but oh, they're just powerful words sometimes, right? So we're just going to grab one first thing that comes to my mind. We'll just go into it for a couple of minutes and call it a day. Oh my goodness. Is it already Monday? Monday, Tuesday? Oh my goodness, I lost time already. 2 more days. Tuesday. Oh, we had this word. I think a couple of weeks ago we had this word. We got the word freedom. Freedom is the choice to dictate for ourselves, right? Isn't that amazing? And I'd have to say the first thing that came to my mind was somebody I cared about very much. He's not here anymore, but his idea in life was to not be working for the man. I don't know, it's the first thing that came to my mind, and when we talk about the freedom. But this actually lines into what he really was passionate about. He didn't like working. He liked being busy. He liked getting stuff done. He liked projects, but he wanted to be the dictator in that. He wasn't a 9 to 5 guy. He wasn't a Monday to Friday kind of person. He didn't want to be under anybody's thumb. It was really, really hard for him to take direction. And he also had a hearing impediment, and it made him very self-conscious, and like we were talking yesterday, we all have issues in our lives, and you know and these sometimes these insecurities, they turn into big ones, much bigger than what they have to, but it's in our experiences, right, with these handicaps that we have, and we're all handicapped, right, physically, mentally, emotionally, something, right? It's just a matter of how honest we are, how truthful we are, how willing to share an experience, because you know what you're struggling with, somebody else will be struggling with. And unless they know that you struggled with this, they wouldn't even think to ask your advice. And you would have an opportunity to help somebody by giving them that information in whatever difficulty that you had overcome. This is my idea, right? Coming, well, it's not my idea, right? It's how I think right now. These are my ideas in my life now. But it was a lesson that I picked up along the way, right? And but without having that information, how would you know to ask somebody that question, right? If you didn't know how to heat a baby bottle, right? Are you gonna, well, that's not a good analogy, but you kind of see the idea, something that you would know, right? Or you should know, or a different um, person would know. But in another generation and in another culture, somebody's just going to look at you blank in asking those questions. But if they were open about what they know about, right, where their understandings are, that you would just say, oh my goodness, I was right. Maybe, I wonder if I could talk to her about this because it seems like she has that information. And, you know, we just don't communicate well enough, and we don't feel people out enough because we're just all online. We're all professional. We're all shirt and tie and yes sir, yes ma'am, and that for me, right, is stealing my freedom. So when it went to, the first thing that came to my mind was my friend Brian and his ideas about working for the man, how he absolutely despised it. And I thought, well, there's everybody's got to work for somebody. Everybody's got to answer to somebody, but sometimes it's not a somebody. Sometimes it's a something, or an accumulation of some things that turns into a bind, right? And this is the way it was for me. Freedom is the choice to dictate for ourselves. I wanted to have my own say. I wanted to come here and just be myself. And you know, that's hard because I think in the beginning, right? I tried that professional. I tried that, the the um, the list that you make, the point list before you come in. And so, you're not moving off a topic, you're just going from 1 2 3 4 5. I tried the video. Oh, that's the worst, when I videotape myself instead of just coming in and going live. I don't think the energy is the same as when I come in live, and that is because I'm beautifying stuff, right? I'm going, ooh, cut. We'll say that again and we'll say it this way. Or go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then you change it all. And, I see this when I go into my lessons, and quite often I'll just bypass that when I see cut. Like if you scroll your mouse to the screen, you'll be able to see, oh, not in the lives, but in a video, you can see all the edit cuts. You can just see every single one, and you look at that and you go, oh my goodness, that just looks like a heart attack going on, because it's just like this, right? With all the edits. And I would just love just to come in and not edit at all. I can't remember. I've never edited a live that I've done. I never have. I've always just come in and just been myself. And that's the freedom of that. Yes, I am aware because, I am a YouTube creator, and YouTube and Google are a very professional company. So I know to keep my place, and I follow the guidelines and their expectations because they're following guidelines too, and how they're allowing us to have a voice in the world, which is part of their mission statement, is to give us a voice, a platform where we have a voice. And I am so grateful, and it's out of that gratefulness that I represent. I hope, right, that I represent. They don't ding me or anything. And also the way I set up my channel, right? I don't put myself in categories where what how do I say that? I don't put myself in categories where anybody might get in trouble, right? For any reason. So I make sure, my content, I check that box. My content isn't for anybody 18 or under, right? And I would just love for anything to get my hands on those preteens and those teenagers, right? Because the damage by then is already done. But there is work, and there is relief, and there is a future for them in their choices, if they even know that they have choices, right? But I can reach the parents and I can reach the grandparents. And so I've got to be good with that, right? I'm not going back to university. I'm not going to be taking psychology classes and anthropology classes and archaeology. I'm not going to get degrees and stuff. That's just not going to happen. I'm 64 years old. And I know lots of people do go back to school, but it would be in a hobby form at 64, wouldn't it? And I don't want what I'm doing right now to be looked at as a hobby. So not having all those degrees on the back of the wall, it's going to be in my presence in showing up here every single day, or it's going to be in the present relationships that I have, whether it's in my instant and immediate vicinity, my family, my close friends, and the people on my platforms who have been following my content forever. And if following forever, I would hope that, we've got a little bit of a connection going on. Like Kathy said, I thought that was absolutely beautiful, Kathy, when you had said that about those ducks. I didn't remember, right? You saying that about the ducks. I just knew that the ducks would be a sweet present for you because I thought you would like them. And I'm glad that you liked them. So yeah, so back to this word freedom. Freedom is the choice to dictate for ourselves. And for me, just to be able to to have that freedom. And what little bit of freedom I have, I think it's absolutely amazing because, before, I would say 10 years ago, I didn't think I had very much. And sometimes when you don't have very much, right, the little things mean the most. And I think that's a truth. And I think, freedom for me is the the choice to be able, to dictate for myself. But there are always considerations, right? I consider my friends, I consider my family, I consider those that I have conversations with, I consider my platform that I create my content on, right? I'm a good I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but you know what? I think I do a pretty good job in my own grading system because in the end, that's all that matters, right? You guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Oh, you make me happy that you said that. I wish I did remember you, but I'm glad in the end those other parts reminded me. Okay, you guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.